but one of them caught our eye, the one in the center. He would neither go towards the feeding grounds at the edge of the ice, nor return to the colony. Shortly afterwards, we saw him heading straight towards the mountains, some 70 kilometers away. Dr. Ainley explained that even if he caught him and brought him back to the colony, he would immediately head right back for the mountains. But why?
What's up, fellas? It's Boley. I know it's been a minute since I last talked to y'all, and I've been itching to get this video out. But with the season officially over and winter workouts starting, now feels like the right time to look towards the future of UNLV football and talk about the moves Dan Mullen and this coaching staff have made over the last few weeks, specifically in the portal, but we will talk about the additions to the coaching staff. We won't go too in-depth on either, just view this more as an overview of where the program's at right now. But before we talk UNLV, we gotta rewind and talk about what happened nationally, because what the Indiana Hoosiers just pulled off is one of the craziest accomplishments I have ever seen in this great sport of college football. And of course, here's the mandatory Abella Danger shot, though none of us know who she is, right? Alright, I'm sorry. This meme, albeit funny at one point, has been done to death. It was a better idea in my head whenever I first thought of this video. Seriously though, the result of this game matters. Indiana proved something huge, something that has been directly used against the entire G6 when it comes to our playoff future. The Hoosiers proved that you do not need elite depth everywhere to win a playoff game, let alone a championship. That team basically ran with about the same 13 guys on defense the entire playoff run. But what you do need are dependable football players, guys who understand the fundamentals of the game and can execute those fundamentals at a high level. And luckily for the group of 6, that's what it used to be built on. So don't let them lie to you, especially whenever they come rating our teams every year that we don't have the required talent to be in the playoff. Now, before anyone clips this out of context, no, I'm not saying UNLV is about to win a national title. From the Rebels' perspective, we do not have anywhere near the funding that Indiana has. Mark Cuban is not walking through that door. And unfortunately, I don't think we will ever get our own Fernando Mendoza. Although I will as a Raider fan, so please Mendoza, save us. What I am trying to say though is the parallels between the two schools are real. Indiana and UNLV are historically basketball schools that became relevant quickly in the new college football landscape after being national afterthoughts for the entirety of their histories in this sport. To pretend there is no comparison is ignoring what this program can become. Will we ever run the sport? Probably not. But can we be a national G6 brand that competes for a playoff spot every year? Yes, and I think that should be the goal. First, we gotta win the Mountain West though. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. Let's actually get into this offseason. Before we get into the priorities on the field, we have to talk about the additions to this coaching staff. First, we officially brought back Mike Shear. Very happy to see that. Now, unfortunately, it was only as a linebackers coach, not as a DC. And I think that signals a few things that we will talk about later in this video. But regardless, I'm just happy to see him back with the program. He knows his school. He knows some of this roster, though most of it has changed since he left. And just having familiarity with the program matters. We also added a new safeties coach, Cap Dede. And again, talk about how that ties into our overall defense a little bit later, because that is Paul Guenther's former coaching spot. As a player, Cap was very successful at Auburn, and as a coach, he has a ton of experience. Most recently, he was a linebackers coach at Oklahoma State. What is interesting, though, is that he had crossover with Dan Mullen prior to this. He worked under Mullen for 2 years, one at Mississippi State in 2017, and then again at Florida in 2018 when Mullen took that job. Now, the hire that I'm probably the most unsure about is the new offensive line coach, Louis Adazio. Not because I don't trust Dan Mullen, I do. It's just a little off the wall in my eyes. Adazio most recently was a quality control assistant for the Kansas City Chiefs, but on the defensive side of the ball. He does have some offensive line coaching experience though. During his time at Texas A&M, he was an assistant to the O-line coach, so it's not a completely new thing for him. Look, I'm not going to trash the hire. He comes from a really respected coaching lineage. His dad, Steve Adazio, was a former Boston College and Colorado State head coach. I just hope it works out. More importantly, I hope he knows what he's doing, because this was the spot that needed the most work going into this offseason. All right, let's actually talk about the players, starting with the most important position in all of football, the offensive line. Y'all thought I was going to say quarterback. We'll get to him later. Don't worry. The plan coming into this year was simple. If UNLV wanted to win a conference or even sniff a playoff, we had to get bigger and meaner up front. I actually think we did a pretty solid job of that so far. We were able to keep guys like Will Thomas and Austin Boyd, which is huge, especially with the new offensive line coach. He'll definitely lean on the returners to run what Mullen and Corey Dennis want from this offense. But what really impressed me so far is the portal additions. We went out and got some absolute behemoths on the line. Guys like Colton Thomason, who was highly rated coming out of high school. He bounced around a couple P4s before landing with us. But with the right coaching and scheme, he could dominate at this level. This dude is massive, 6'8", 320. We could say the same thing to a lesser extent with Jackson Brown from Pitt. He had limited reps there, mostly on special teams, but just his size alone at 6'6", 310 pounds helps fix issues that we've had against bigger teams. And we even added more talent to our guard position with the addition of Griffin Scruggs, who has started before during his time at App State, and BJ Tolo. I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm hoping he's going to be this year's Reed Williams. Anytime I see an undersized interior lineman who started at the FBS level, I know he gotta be a dog. You don't survive in the trenches at that size unless you're willing to throw hands and get nasty. My only concern with this group, if we add the returnees into this equation, we've got 3 tackles and 3 guards, no centers. To me, that means everyone will be competing for their spot, which is good. Or someone, if not all, will be moving positions, and someone's going to have to learn center, unless we are confident in existing offensive linemen on roster already knowing or have learned the position. Unlike maybe Ed Haynes, I've seen that floated around Twitter. That'd be cool to see a Vegas kid start on the offensive line. I just want the best lineup possible. Look, with almost every transfer at this level, a lot of these guys are gonna need to be developed. That's why they're here. They wouldn't have left the schools that they were at if they didn't need some sort of development. That's where we have to trust Dan Mullen's evaluations. Because if these guys can actually play, this could be the biggest leap in one position group this program makes all year. Moving on quickly to the rest of the offense, our running back room pretty much stayed intact for the most part. We're going to use a lot of the same backs that we had from last year's team. The biggest one being Jet coming back. That was a wonderful thing to hear when it was announced. Same thing with Jalen Glover. The receiving room is still loaded, even with departures like Jaden Bradley and Troy Amire. We were able to bring in some solid talent and depth, like Taz Riddicks from Oregon State, Keon Burnett as the tight end replacement for Elksness, I'm guessing, Amarion Walker, who's a big receiver, probably going to take that role of Amire and Jaden Bradley, just given his size, and Kentucky/Clemson receiver Troy Stellato, who during his time with the Tigers was productive. It'll be fun to see what all these pass catchers can do in this offense, because I definitely feel whoever the quarterback is going to have some options to throw to. Moving on to the defense. Defensively, we actually returned more players than I expected, which is very encouraging. We kept a lot of core guys like Jake Pope, Blessing, Mumu Ben Wahad, and a ton of other players I can't think of off the top of my head. So there will be plenty of familiarity on this defense, for better or worse. We were still able to add talent like Tony Lewis from ASU, Avery Helm, Landon Cleveland, Kyron Chambers, and Herb Gray for depth. The 2 guys I'm most excited about gotta be guys like Cam Santee, who was very productive at the FCS level, and that jump up to the G5 has gone really well for FCS guys lately, hoping that that trend continues with us, and D. Creighton, who I'll admit has limited snaps so far in his career. The fact that he was able to get any playing time at Clemson, even in a down year, is impressive. Honestly, all you gotta do is turn on his high school tape. His upside is real, if it clicks. But that's the issue with a lot of these guys, is it gotta click in order for us to see any production. I know I'm probably missing someone else, or we might have added a couple at the end here, but those are the main guys that I see could help this defense. But now we gotta talk about it, man. Here's the uncomfortable part of all this. All the talent is great, but the defense still comes down to one man. And I'll be honest, I have zero faith in that man right now. Paul Gunther will make or break this team as a defensive play caller. Finding out that he's calling the defense again was brutal to hear. Now, was there anything formal about him officially being named the DC? No, but the fact that we did bring back Mike Shear as a linebackers coach, not as a defensive coordinator, and we replaced him at the safeties coaching position was all I needed to hear to know that we are stuck with him for at least another year. That said, I'm going to choose to be optimistic. I hope I'm wrong about him. I would love to be wrong about him. I just want what's best for this team, and clearly the players want to play for him. That's why we were able to retain so many players, so I'll leave it at this. I will be his biggest fan if he figures it out. I will be also expecting the worst but hoping for the best, because all this talent means nothing if the scheme does not fit the players. We cannot call ourselves a fringe playoff team if if our defensive ratings look anything close to what they did last year. Be better, please. Now let's talk about the biggest name of the offseason, our potential new signal caller, Jackson Arnold. First of all, his introduction to the city at the Strat was one of the coolest things I've seen done for UNLV in Las Vegas in a long time. As for my thoughts on him, am I excited that he's probably going to be QB1? Honestly, not really. I'm concerned about a lot of bad habits he may have picked up during his time at Oklahoma and Auburn, because let's face it, the guy got beat up. He had no protection for most of his time in the SEC, and now it looks like when he feels any type of pressure, he tucks and runs instead of scanning down the field and trying to find the open man. So that worries me. But if anyone can fix him, it's Dan Mullen and Corey Dennis, right? Probably more Dan. Corey is the OC, so we got to give him some credit. If he wins the QB battle, he's my guy, period. Because for every concern I have, it is undeniable that the talent is there. And I hate to use high school ratings, but he wasn't highly rated for no reason. He can definitely throw that thing around the field when he's in a rhythm. Now, the main thing is, can he do what this coaching staff's going to ask from him? Can he play within the system, take what's given to him, and hit the occasional down the field shot? If he can, we can absolutely win this conference and ultimately reach the playoff with him. Because I could really see him having a Calandria type of year, winning the Mountain West Player of the Year, looking like a baller out there if he runs the offense the way he's supposed to. So, Jackson Arnold, welcome to Vegas. Come on, man, you got to lead us to the promised land, big dog. One last thing before I get out of here. We got to talk about that Memphis game. Week 0, Memphis Tigers, Allegiant Stadium. I am incredibly proud of Eric Harper, Dan Mullen, and everyone involved for not taking the easy way out and scheduling an FCS team. That's what we could have done. That's probably what we were going to do. So I'm glad that we took a step up in competition. If UNLV wants to be respected, and I'm talking real respect, we are going to have to schedule the hardest possible non-con games going forward. Because let's be honest, the new Mountain West will not get the benefit of the doubt. That's just how it is. And that's why this Memphis matchup is huge in the grand scheme of things. With the new college football playoff rules and really the anti-G6 sentiment that's growing in the CFP right now, this is how you fight it. Now, as for this actual Memphis team, their fans are loud. They're annoying. I don't know if you guys remember that whole Dan Mullen situation where their fan base was 100% set on getting our coach. Luckily enough for us, Dan Mullen realized that Las Vegas is a much better place than Memphis could ever be and decided to stay, if there was any traction there to begin with. But I enjoy going back and forth with them. That's kind of what makes college football special. I also like the idea of cultivating a new rivalry outside the Mountain West, and I think it would be very nice to shut that team up for a year or two. I do respect their new coach, Charles Huff. He's a baller. He's won everywhere he's been. He's a really good coach, so it won't be easy to beat this Memphis team. This is a big-time G6 game, and I'll say it right now. If Eric Harper and Dan Mullen, specifically Dan, can pull some strings at ESPN, get College Game Day here on the Strip for a packed-out Allegiant football game, that's how you make UNLV undeniable. That's all I got for today. See ya.